Again, thank you to the team at WorkSource Todd for hosting it. Certainly is a facility, and good luck in finishing it. And we also appreciate the snowy weather, but I'd ask that you please keep that up here in Georgia. As we move into the business, I think each of you, either in a packet here or should have received today's agenda and also the meeting minutes from the October 21st meeting. Hopefully you had a chance to review those. Are there any questions or necessary changes to either the agenda or previous meeting minutes? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the February 20th agenda and the meeting minutes from October 21 of 24?
Motion.
Second.
Having a motion and a second, those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the meeting minutes and agenda are passed. We'll move into committee reports. The first committee report will be the Adult and Dislocated Worker Committee. Brandon Ona will provide the update for this particular committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. The Adult Dislocated Worker Committee meeting met last week. We did not have quorum, but there was one action item that was moved to the Youth Committee, and Ms. present that action item when we get to the Youth Committee updates. That action item was policy update an update to policy 4.1.1, performance of WI way. After the action item, we did have an update from local area director Keith Dixon. He is the director of WorkSource part of Georgia, and he provided us with an update on how his local workforce development area is administering Hurricane Debbie disaster recovery funding to aid his local communities. As a result of the disaster, our office had applied for an emergency dislocated worker grant, and I believe we briefed you all on that at the last meeting, to assist individuals impacted by the hurricane, both those that have lost their job and also helping with the cleanup of the surrounding area. And due to the significant damage to their public infrastructure, they were able to partner with local organizations, get some heavy machinery, and clean up a lot of the public roads or assist with helping to clean up a lot of the public roads they have there. And then from there, they're taking all those impacted individuals who did lose their jobs or were in jobs that just weren't allowing them to, reach self-sufficiency, with opportunities to retrain in some of the more in-demand careers that they have in the area. Secondly, we had a presentation from Mr. Paul Workman, who gave an overview of the transition center that was set up at the Chico's Distribution Center in Winder, Georgia. We'll have a full kind of presentation on that later on in this meeting. Essentially, there was a layoff or closure at that facility that's currently ongoing, and we set up a temporary site there to aid those workers. And then lastly, we had a presentation from Mr. John Moore, who provided an overview of the recently concluded LIFT roundtables that we held in conjunction with our partners in the Office of Adult Education. And those roundtables were held throughout the state. I think we had 4 specific events, and that brought together partners across a number of programs, and it helped retrain, or not necessarily retrain, but it helped us kind of coordinate our activities around our Quest Dislocated Worker grant that we're offering. And that concluded the updates. Any questions?
Are there any questions for Brandon? Hearing none, thank you. So we'll move on to the Youth Committee. Dr. Andrews will provide an update, but also Jennifer Houston will bring a policy change.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I listened in on the lively chatter prior to the meeting, and I regret that I'm not able to be there with you. It sounded like y'all were having a really good time. So the Youth Committee met on Tuesday, February the 11th, 2024, and we did have a quorum, and we approved the minutes of the October 2024 meeting and the agenda for that day. The committee heard an overview of the WorkSource Atlanta Workforce Development Program from Miyoshi Primo, and their program is called RISE, Reaching Independence Through Skills and Employment, and it supports eligible youth ages 16 to 24. She told us that participants have found success in industries such as construction, information technology, entrepreneurship, and education. And they can also gain certificates in OSHA 10 and forklift operations. The program also offers access to online learning platforms like Grow with Google, Allison, and Coursera to ensure participants are well prepared for their training programs. And then we heard from Jennifer Houston, who will share more details about the particular policy issue. But she provided the committee with an overview of measurable skills gains and presented the policy changes that we are bringing forward to you today to OWD Policy Manual Section 4.1.1, Youth in Program Skills Gains. She explained that the proposed changes aligns our state policy with the latest federal guidance outlined in the Training and Guidance Letter 10/16, Change 3. So this revision allows states to report an educational funding level gain when a participant successfully passes one subtest on a state recognized high school equivalency, such as a GED or a HiSET, instead of having to pass all the portions of one of those tests before they can report any gains. So Jennifer's going to talk to you about this, and then Jennifer, when you're finished, I will tell the committee that this is a recommendation from the youth group. So go ahead, Jennifer.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
All right, well, today I'm going to do a presentation on the measurable skills gain on 4.1.1 for the subtest for the GED and HiSET. So just to kind of give you a brief overview of what is measurable skills gains, it is one of the 6 indicator for performance for the WIA program. How a participant can get measurable skills gain has to be a participant that is actively participating in training. And what we mean by training, it may be someone that's in secondary education, post-secondary education. They may be in occupational training, on-the-job training, customized training, things of that such. And what we do is, while a participant is in training, we provide a program here, which is July 1 to June 30th. We monitor those participants that are in training to make sure that they are performing. And if they're not, progressing or not gaining the skills, then the local areas provide the extra remediation that is needed so that they can get those gains. And so the policy item that we're presenting today is dealing with the subtest for the GED and the HiSET. And we're wanting to be aligned with adult education because they have already implemented this in their policy, and we co-enroll our participants into their program. So with this update, we'll be able to increase our performance for measurable skills gains with the local areas. And so when we're saying post-test for like GED, HiSET, they have the 4 sections that they take. And we know some participants, it takes longer for them to complete their GED. Some may take 2 years, some may take 3 years. So those that are not able to complete their GED or HiSET within that 1 year time frame, being able to take one test at a time and pass, that allow the local areas to get measurable skills gain, and so that they are meeting performance. So that there we are recommending that you all approve of this policy action item so that we'll be able to count subtests individually instead of waiting for the participant to take all 4 parts of the GED and to get a measurable skills gain. Dr. Andrews.
Thank you. This policy change was approved by the youth committee and sent forward to the executive committee, and it was approved unanimously by the executive committee to bring it forward to the committee of the whole. So from the youth committee, we recommend this policy change that Jennifer has just described to you, 4.1.1. Mr. Chairman, I'll put that in the form of a motion that we approve this policy change.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of approving 4.1.1 as outlined, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion to approve the policy updates to 4.1.1 have passed. Anything else for Dr. Andrews?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Moving on to Finance and Performance Committee. Dr. Wilburn, I believe you're on and will lead us through this.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Appreciate it, Mr. Chairman. The Finance and Performance Committee met on Tuesday, February 11th, 2025. Quorum was met. However, we had no action items. Compliance and Program Director James Thomas gave an update on this year's monitoring session. Thus far, 10 areas have completed their on-site monitoring. Some of those areas are still in their corrective action phase. However, the on-site portion of their monitoring has been completed. A new addition to this year's monitoring plan is an entrance meeting presentation given by the director from the local area. These presentations include, but are not limited to, local area structure and operations, highlights from the local plan, performance numbers, top training programs in their area, success stories, and other additional items. Data validation is also a new component to this year's monitoring. It was being performed by OWD, but not during monitoring. Data validation compares a sample of participants' records against source documentation to ensure compliance with federal, state, and local policies and procedures. To be considered as passing data validation review, the programmatic pass-fail ratio must be below 5% reporting error. If it's above the 5% reporting error, the entity must provide an action plan within 30 days to remedy these errors. There has not been any area thus far that has gone beyond the 5% error rate. Currently, there have been 6 findings, each under the financial and programmatic monitoring areas, and 1 finding under the compliance monitoring area. There are also 3 technical corrections under the programmatic monitoring area so far. Technical corrections do not raise to the level of a finding. However, they are required actions. After this, we had Grants and Finance Director Darian Moore give an update or a finance update. We're currently in the final 4 months of PY22's funding. Out of the $16 million received from the feds for audit for adults, there is roughly 1% left to expend by the local areas by June 30th. Of the $30 million received for dislocated workers, 8% is still available to expend by the local areas. There's about 3% left to expend by local areas out of the $17 million allotted for youth. And in PY22, the funding took a cut across the board. There was about an 8% cut for both adult and dislocated worker funds and an 8.5% cut for youth. About 72% of those funds have been expended by the local areas across the 3 funding streams. There was just less than a 1% cut in adults for PY24 funding, but a 5% in dislocated worker and a little over 0.5% for youth. About 12 million of the 15 million has already been spent or sent to the local areas. They haven't spent it yet from the adult funding. 22 of the 26 million for dislocated worker has been sent, and 13 of the 15 million for youth. Following the financial update, Grants and Finance Director Darian Moore also gave a summary from the 2024 WorkSource Georgia Academy. There are over 220 registered attendees, 36 sessions with the theme Training the Future. Sessions include uniform guidance updates, labor market management, and leveraging AI for quality customer service, just to name a few. In the future, if any board members are interested in attending this academy, just contact the staff member for more information. We'll get you a seat. Following that update, I have no additional items. I'll give it back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Dr. Wilbur. Any questions? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to the Apprenticeship Committee, and State Workforce Board Member Jake Cunningham will provide the update.
I was not prepared for that. I offered to do it.
My bad. So the apprenticeship committee met last week, and they did have a quorum. The agenda and meeting minutes were approved unanimously, and there were no further action items for the committee to consider. There was a presentation from Mr. Danny Mitchell, who's the apprenticeship program manager. He provided an update on the program development activities of the apprenticeship team. A couple of highlights from those activities. The apprenticeship team is currently partnering with the Georgia World Congress Center to launch apprenticeships in industrial maintenance and quality control. They're also working with the Georgia Vocational Rehabilitation Agency to support individuals with disabilities that are looking to enter public service apprenticeships, a recent priority of the state of Georgia and the governor. And he also shared that previously there was a highlight a video that was put together on one of our apprentices with Oglethorpe Power. And she has successfully completed her apprenticeship. She is now a power plant operator. So we're very excited about that. Mr. Jeffrey Johnson, who's our apprenticeship pathways coordinator, he provided an update on pre-apprenticeship program activities. We have recently partnered with a local organization to provide students the opportunity to participate in career exploration in the career exploration tour of Oasis Aviation. That is a company that we've worked with the high demand apprenticeship program over the course of a couple of years. And we were able to show those young people about the advantages of apprenticeship programs, specifically in aviation, and give them a tour of the airport. TCSG also partnered with Clayton Community Resource Network for a Clayton County Job Fair to make sure that we were able to speak about apprenticeships to students that were looking for jobs. And lastly, we are working with the Georgia Department of Education for relying pre-apprenticeship opportunities around work-based learning programs and also with our colleges for dual enrollment programs. And we'll also have a presentation later on today from a representative from the Georgia Department of Education. Mr. Adam Hawk, Director of Apprenticeships, provided an update on the Apprenticeship Navigator Grant. This was a portion of our state apprenticeship grant that we have sub-awarded to a handful of our local workforce development areas. We were able to announce which ones we were making those awards to. It's WorkSource Georgia Mountains, WorkSource Fulton, and WorkSource Middle Georgia. It is funded through our state apprenticeship expansion grant. And the goal is to expand apprenticeship partnerships between our TCSG institutions and our local workforce development areas and to better align WIOA to support registered apprenticeships in the long term. And then we had Tyrese Eccles, who provided an update on the 2024 Georgia Apprenticeship Summit. It was an event that we held in the fall to celebrate the state's activities in apprenticeships. It was held at the Forsyth Conference Center at Lanier Technical College. They were very gracious in hosting us. And the theme was Building Georgia's Future Together, Empowering Our Workforce Through Apprenticeship Partnerships. We had 154 attendees, including employer, workforce development representatives, and of course, our PCSG representatives as well. A few folks from the board. Commissioner Dozier spoke to close us out that day. Sorry about that. And then lastly, Mr. Shane Evans, Dean of Economic Development at Chattahoochee Technical College, provided an update and overview to the committee on their apprenticeship programs and how they align various funding streams to support their apprenticeship programs. Any questions? Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Chairman, just a comment. I thought the summit was incredible. I wasn't able to be there, but at closing, but just the spirit of the meeting and the emotion in the room was just incredible. Thank you for everything y'all did to make that happen. The other thing is, I think we've shared that video with the board, but if we haven't, please take time to look at that video, listen to back out. Just an incredible video by the team. So thank y'all.
Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you.
Talk about that.
I missed out.
All right. The next agenda item is the executive committee. It is a date change for the next state board meeting. Previously, just for information, it was the week before, but due to scheduling conflicts, executive committee reviewed and approved a post change to May 22nd. the site to be determined still yet. So, that is being brought forward to the larger board. Is there a motion to approve the date change for the second quarter meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor of this motion indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, then the date change is accepted. Again, thank you. There were just numerous conflicts that we needed to work around, so we appreciate that. The next agenda item is also an announcement of the appointment of Amy Jordan to the Adult and Dislocated Worker Committee. She's not here, so just be aware of that, and certainly in our next meeting, hopefully she'll be able to join us.
I'm here.
Congratulations. I can't see you, all I see is the whiteboard. But thank you for your willingness to serve on that very important. Okay, moving along, we are now ready for the Deputy Commissioner's report. Terry.
Good morning. Thanks, everybody, for being here. I know that the weather's not ideal. And contrary to popular rumors, I am not responsible for it. I wanted to make you all aware primarily of some organizational changes that we've made within Office of Workforce Development. As you all know, because you've heard ad nauseum, that 2 years ago, we brought over a number of programs from the Georgia Department of Labor, which significantly changed kind of our mission, it increased our scope, and certainly the number of employees that we had, and just a lot of opportunities for us. During that time, we've been slow to make any kind of leadership changes, structural changes, and so forth. And this is what we did when we brought all of the new programs over, and pretty much they all were living here or in here under major projects. Emily Brinson became our director of major projects, and that's our customized recruitment arm that supports large employers who've been promised that incentive by Georgia Department of Economic Development as part of their deal in coming in with the state. So primarily working right now with Hyundai. And then we had an executive director of employment services and special programs where we kind of lumped a lot of the programs that came over from the Georgia Department of Labor under that role, and yet we did not fill that role immediately. So we were trying to figure out like what makes sense for us as a division and how best to kind of align our resources and so forth. And I have to say that in the meantime, a number of individuals have shouldered additional responsibilities without any kind of title changes or incentives in doing so. And that's just kind of, it just speaks to the quality of staff that we have, that everyone took it on. So we recently made some changes and promoted a number of deserving individuals. Kristen Larhoven is now our Assistant Commissioner of Compliance, Finance, and External Affairs. Damon Weller is our Assistant Commissioner of Workforce Data and Program Quality. We have an Assistant Commissioner position for Employment Services that remains open. We promoted Brandon to Executive Director of Business Engagement. And then, of course, Mia will answer directly up to me. I'm happy about that. She previously answered to Kristen, but in kind of restructuring, we figured this kind of made a little more sense for our structure. And what that looks like under each role. So under Damon's purview, Stephen Wilson was our Director of Data Analysis and Reporting. He's taken on a number of other responsibilities. So he was promoted to Executive Director under that group. You'll notice there's a vacant Director of Training and Program Quality. Rhonda Waite, who you see here as Executive Director of Workforce Services and Operations, she was previously filling the role of training and compliance and so forth on the Title III side, primarily. And she has accepted the role of Executive Director of Workforce Services and Operations. And through that, we put all of our external-facing customer service types of roles up under her purview. So, Director of Grants and Strategic Populations, Rosati Rios, which encompasses our Jobs for Veterans State Grant programs, our Migrant Seasonal Farm Worker program, Foreign Labor Certification program, a lot of public-facing programming, along with our employment network, which serves individuals with disabilities who are trying to obtain employment while they're receiving Social Security. And then our employment services operations, so all of our field staff and the career centers operate under JJ Urban. And so those sit up under Rhonda. And again, that assistant commissioner role remains open. And so Rhonda answers directly up to me. With Kristen, we have our compliance monitoring, our compliance monitoring and programs team, which is led by James Thomas. Darian Moore, Director of Finance and Grants Management. And we have a new director, I'm not sure that you all have met, Cheryl Meyer. She's our Director of Communications. Cheryl, you wanna- yeah, she joined the team in December. We consolidated our business services up under Brandon. And so our Title III Business Services Group is operating under Jamon Williams. Major projects, Emily Brenson, I mentioned before. We promoted Adam Hawk to our Director of Registered Apprenticeship, and we promoted Laura Gomez to our Director of Rapid Response and Business Programs. Now, the purpose of this is to kind of better align all of our services. So all of our employer touch points, our business services components are united. So previously, we had Title I business services, we had rapid response, we had registered apprenticeship over here, we had customized recruitment, and we have our Title III business services over here. Now they're all aligned. Also, our Title I and Title III compliance and monitoring components, they've all come together to sit under Kristen's purview because we have to do monitoring. We have compliance issues on the Title III side. We do the same thing on the Title I side. So it made sense for us to kind of pull all of those together. Again, I mentioned all of our external facing customer service programs. They're now aligned so that there's better communication, better collaboration, and so forth. Darian is managing all of our budgets and grant management functions, where we, for a long time, were just kind of holding JBSG and the Title III grant to some degree over here, and he was managing the Title I and the registered apprenticeship budget funds. Those are now under his purview. And all of our training, so training, data integrity, data performance, we felt like it made sense to tie staff training to performance, right? Because performance what our staff need to be trained on should be informed by our performance and our data and so forth, what it tells us about what our needs are. So all of that sits under Damon at this point. We'll be hiring for a director of training. We're hiring for a couple of other key positions, but I feel really good about the team that we have. I always felt good about the team we had. Just let me be clear about that. That's not a shame. But I feel really good about this structure. I think this really supports, kind of where we're going. So some of our areas of focus are to increase our brand awareness around the state, the WorkSource brand, which we are not trying to divorce ourselves in any way from TCSG. We're just trying to minimize the confusion of job seekers who come into the Career Center. So that's a brand that our local areas have used. It came over from Georgia Department of Economic Development when Title I came over. We're going to continue to capitalize on that and just kind of raise visibility around that, around our services, our customer services. Maximize our use and reach our employment services, resources, and staff. We're still figuring out what that statewide footprint should look like, but we really want to focus on expanding and maximizing virtual services. We cannot afford to have our employment services staff in every county around the state, but we might be able to afford to have a virtual access point and certainly have staff trained to support individuals, whether they're at home and they have broadband access or they can make it to a library and access a kiosk, any number of things like that. So we really want to focus on those. High quality service delivery, big priority, and our director of training and Damon's team, they'll be informing that process. Expand our access and increase enrollment through strategic partnerships and initiatives. So we're looking at where we can better engage with other partners and stakeholders around the state to facilitate co-enrollment. We've been working very closely with adult ed, which seems like a no-brainer and low-hanging fruit. But there's a lot of components to making sure that we're co-enrolling our Title II participants who are in adult ed with services that they could receive from Title I, our local workforce development areas, and our Wagner Pizer services as well. So we're working to facilitate that. That's an example of the kind of partnerships we want to engage into, and the formal referral and enrollment processes we have to put in place to ensure we can increase enrollment. And obviously increase our employer participation and engagement across all of our programs. And I think our consolidation of our business service team and with the work they're doing through registered apprenticeships and just our general outreach to employers as a whole, I think is going to really facilitate that. So that's kind of the crux of my report today. I just kind of wanted to let you all know the changes we've made. Yeah, Mike.
Just real quick, I know JJ made a presentation a while back about the kiosk. How's that thing going? The kiosk.
It's been kind of slow in terms of adoption, people using it, and Cheryl's team, the communications team, Tyler came up with these kind of great ideas. This is Tyler; he's on our communications team. Very talented graphic artist, and and Andrea is with us as well. They kind of brainstormed some strategies to, like, okay, how can we raise visibility around the kiosk? And so we're working on a communications plan to really promote the kiosk in the particular areas where they're located,
right,
and also working on expanding access to them, so getting more of them out in the community. My hope is that by June, we'll really start to see some traffic, people using them.
So can we use any PSA? Is that available for us as far as a freebie on the public service stuff? And again, they targeted areas. It may only be for targeted areas, like maybe
Yeah.
for job losses and whatnot in some areas. I don't know. Just an
Yeah.
idea.
No, I appreciate it. And, I think Cheryl and the communications team are open to kind of, I got a brief on a communication plan for the kiosk, and that's something that, we'll certainly look into. It's like those particular locations, what might be the public service avenues that we can tap into. Yeah.
Just trying to bring awareness to it, because I mean, it's a pretty cool kiosk. So
It is. And that's where we've not connected the dots in raising the visibility around it.
Okay.
So, anybody, anything else? Thank you. Appreciate it.
Congratulations to all the new people on the chart.
Yeah.
Need to reassign. Right, next item on our agenda is an update from Dr. Perrin on the articulation agreements and reports. Dr. Perrin.
Good morning. Pleasure to see everyone. It's a pleasure to be here on this snowy February day. First off, Karen, this morning, I did accuse her of arranging all of this, so anyway, it certainly it's good to be here and to meet with you all and to share with you some information regarding articulation work that we're doing as a system technical college is doing. And I want to tie this in with one of the governor's key bills in this year's legislative sessions, and that's House Bill 192, which is the top state for talent act. The act has many components that involve the state workforce. I'd like to spend a few moments focusing on one of these components, transfer and articulation initiatives between UDOE, TCSG, USG, and Hope eligible post-secondary institutions in their state. In 2024, the General Assembly passed Senate Bill 399, which encouraged and set expectations for the University System of Georgia and the Technical College System of Georgia to create new agreements and expand existing agreements for transfer and articulation of courses and programs. Senate Bill 399 called for USG and TCSG to provide a biannual report to the General Assembly by December 1 of every even-numbered year, detailing our transfer and articulation efforts. In accordance with this regulation, with this legislation, we submitted our first report in December of 2024. Since under proposed House Bill 192, this report would now be submitted by the governor or to the Governor General Assembly by the State Workforce Development Board. I've been asked to share with you the work that we did under Senate Bill 399. Senate Bill 399 instructed TCSG and USG to provide a biennial report focusing largely on 3 areas. And these areas included providing a list of courses approved by the Board of Regents and the State Board of the Technical College System of Georgia to be transferable between institutions in these 2 systems. Secondly, the report was to provide a list of USG programs where these courses are accepted as part of the transfer agreement and the TCSG programs that these courses are transferred from. And thirdly, the report was to identify where the 2 systems are working together to reduce barriers for transfer between our 2 systems, as well as efforts to develop reverse transfer opportunities between the 2 systems and align transfer courses with a high demand career base. So the first item, again, provide a list of courses approved by the 2 boards. We included the 28 courses that have existed since 2012 that the university system and the technical college system have agreed to transfer. As you can see from this list of 28, these are primarily general education courses, range from everything from arts to English to math to speech. So this was part of our report that took care of item number 1. The second part of it was to provide a list of USG programs. Yeah, this will wake you up. Psychedelics, that's what it is. Was to provide that list of courses or programs that transferred from TCSG to USG. As we went through this, there are 854 programs that we have articulation agreements for. And again, as you can see, they're all over the state. In fact, every one of our institutions has at least one transfer agreement with the USG institution, and every USG institution, with the exception of Georgia Tech, receives at least one of these transfers from our system. So you can see there's an awful lot of work going on. So somewhat.
Craig, can I interrupt you just
Please
a second? I just want to make sure that we're real familiar with this, but some of you may not be. The first list, the 28 that you saw, are the courses that any of our colleges teach will be accepted at any of the university system colleges. This is below that, you have 854 articulation agreements that may be a course or it may be a program. And so, for example, Augusta University takes cyber from any of our 22 colleges, and it's a 2+2, meaning the entire 2 years of credit, if you take it at any of our 22 colleges, will transfer to Augusta. So these lines that you see here can represent a single class or represent a global agreement like I just described. Sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to make sure that the lines were clear.
That's a challenge. But again, as you can see, there's an awful lot of work that's been going on between our institutions for years. This is not something that happened in the last year. This has been going on for 15 years or so since our first colleges got SAC-COC accredited back in the late 1990s. So this work has been going on for some time. The third part of the report that we provided to the General Assembly and the Governor was to identify areas that we're working together and identify barriers and how we can work more closely together. And to do that, USG and TCSG came up with 10 recommendations. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on any of these 10. I just want you to know what they are and let you know that we are actively working as we speak towards implementing these 10 recommendations. And the first one was to develop an academic advisement collaborative between USG, TCSG, and the Georgia Department of Education, which would support the awareness of transfer opportunities, transfer efficiency. Basically, we want to be sure that people know what transfer opportunities exist and how to transfer from one institution to another, how to take courses that were earned as a K-12 student and get articulated credit for those at the post-secondary level. The second recommendation was to explore technology solutions to develop a web-based shared repository of transfer articulations between our systems. And in other words, we wanted to be sure that there was a way that we could get out information on these articulated programs between our two systems and have that as a web-based solution. I guess I should.
You break it. Shouldn't like here.
Anyway, this is a little larger than life, actually, but the third recommendation is to share the data that we have regarding student success. In other words, once the student articulates, how do they do it? And first of all, how many students actually articulate, and then how do they do once they articulate? And the fourth recommendation was to expand the number of general education courses that you saw in that list of 28 to at least 37. And I'll talk more about that in just a moment. The fifth was to develop a reverse transfer articulation agreement between USG and TCSG. And reverse articulation is where the student leaves one of our institutions, and I'll use Chattahoochee Tech and Kennesaw State as an example because they've been our leader in reverse transfer. The student leaves Chattahoochee Tech. They didn't earn their associate degree, but they were close to it. But they transferred to Kennesaw State and to continue a 4-year degree. But while they were continuing that 4-year degree, they actually took the combination of courses that had they stayed at Chattahoochee, they would have been awarded an associate degree. So this allows Chattahoochee to take that credit that was earned at Kennesaw State and apply it towards an associate degree at Chattahoochee, whereby they are awarded an associate degree. So that's reverse transfer articulation. So the one of the recommendations, and this was actually driven by the legislation, was for us to look at reverse transfer, which we are doing. We also are engaging in developing a system-wide articulation agreement in high demand areas. And one of the ones that we've really signaled on, focused on, is our nursing programs. So students who completed Associate of Science in Nursing can transfer to a university system to get a Bachelor of Science in Nursing without having to take courses over again. In other words, it's a true 2+2 articulation. And we'll talk more about that in just a moment as well. The seventh one, I'm not moving that up. I guess I did right. Well, now it's moving. Okay, 7. All right, to enhance our efforts to create a senior level steering committee. In other words, to have the steering committee of made up from people from the university system and TCSG to guide the work of these recommendations. The 8th one is to investigate adding additional 1,000, 2,000 level courses to a statewide articulation agreement. Number 9 is to explore the development of true 2+2 statewide articulations in some areas that are in high demand, and also for an employee to advance in the organization, they need to have a bachelor's degree. They can be hired with an associate degree, but to advance in that work, they need to have a bachelor's degree. So we've identified the areas of accounting, computer science, criminal justice, and early childhood education as areas that we're more focused on building this 2+2. And the last one is to engage together to develop a joint marketing plan. Again, we can do all these great things, but if no one knows about it, then we kind of spun our wheels. So we want to develop a marketing plan to focus on these. So those were the 10 recommendations. And just so you know, we're already actively working on many of these. So recommendation 4, for example, was to increase the number of courses in the statewide articulation agreement from 28 to at least 37. We're actively engaged in this now, and it looks like we're going to have at least 39 courses that come out of this. University system and TCSG are working to articulate 11 additional courses. We hope that this will come before our state board in May for final approval. We're also working On recommendation 6, as I shared with you just a few moments ago, working on developing a true 2+2 in nursing between our system and USG. And we're really basing this on an agreement that we did with Mercer University last year. The commissioner and the president, President Underwood at Mercer University signed an agreement where Mercer basically can take any of our healthcare programs that lead to an associate degree and apply that coursework towards a 4-year degree in some sort at Mercer, and the focus being on their nursing program. So we're using that as a model to build this true 2+2 articulation agreement between TCSG and USG. And this is huge. You know, there's a severe nursing shortage, of course, in Georgia and nationwide. We believe that this will be a way that we can help attack that nursing shortage. We hope that by the end of 2025 that this articulation will be in place. And again, this will be a major leap forward because the university system has never really done the statewide articulation. Now, some of their institutions have, like the commissioner mentioned, Augusta University did the Seidler agreement with our colleges, but we don't have a true system-wide articulation between USC and TCSC, so this would be a huge step. We're also actively working on recommendations number 1 and 2 through the Career Navigator Initiative. This is part of the governor's Top State for Talent Act work that's been ongoing, where we're working with USC, the Georgia Board of Education, Georgia Student Finance, and the Governor's Office of Student Achievement to build a Career Navigator tool. This would be a cloud-based tool that comprehensively helps Georgia residents identify career interests, educational requirements, educational pathways, availability of training and education for each of these pathways, and jobs available upon completion of the pathway. The initiative also includes career advisement components and job placement assistance. So again, you can see that we're actively working on these recommendations that we developed. Other requirements under House Bill 192 relocates the articulation agreement report created by Senate Bill 399 to the State Workforce Development Board. It adds the State Workforce Development Board, the Governor's Office of Student Achievement, and the Georgia Department of Education to the existing report. In other words, it's not just a USG TCSG reporting board. It's more broad in scope. The State Workforce Development Board, in collaboration with these other agencies, is directed to create a report that includes each component from Senate Bill 399 that we talked about earlier, and adds courses articulated from the Georgia Department of Education to TCSG and USG, courses approved by HOPE eligible private institutions and the State Board of TCSG to be transferable between these institutions, and transfer and articulation data. This also mandates that state agencies and educational institutions share data that's necessary to develop this report with the Governor's Office of Student Achievement as they develop the report. And just to let you know, even though that's new to Senate Bill, or what will be House Bill 192, the Top State for Talent Act, we are already working in those areas as well. The TCSG and the Georgia Department of Education have 22 articulation pathways that exist, and you can see the list of these there. And this list grows almost every month. In fact, we'll have one to the commissioner this week to add a 23rd in hospitality and tourism. So this list continues to grow. Another part of the new Top State for Talent Act requires us to identify the areas that we work with Georgia's private colleges. So you can see a list on the screen here of Georgia's private colleges that have agreed to automatically admit students from TCSG that have at least a 2.5 grade point average when they graduate with an associate degree. Of course, there are a few exceptions that are noted on the list. For example, Agnes Scott requires a 3.0 instead of the 2.5. But this includes almost all of Georgia's private institutions. Emory is really the only one that really sticks out that's not part of this. So we're excited about this one.
Right. What is faith commitment required?
Those are religious schools, and they require that you sign you know, that you're a Christian or whatever the denomination is.
Kind of what I was reading into and looking at the names of it. I said, okay.
So, you know, Shorter's a Baptist school, for example, and, so they require that
So they want to graduate bank laude instead of cum laude.
I think a lot of them.
Sorry.
You got a way to stay more.
We also have already worked out a list of 59 courses that transfer between the university, between the technical college system and all these private institutions. Now, all the private institutions don't teach all 59 of these courses, but if they do, those courses are transferable between our institutions and those private schools. So again, you can see that even though this report's not due until next December 2026, we're already doing a lot of work to prepare for this report. So again, we'll continue to work until then, and you know, we do provide the Tech Ed Committee, the state board, with periodic reports on our progress, and we'll be happy to do that for this board as well, if you like, of course, too. So be happy to entertain any questions you may have.
Ray, if there's the 28 to 39 and the illustrious state board may meet in May and run that forward, how long before it hits the ground essentially at that point?
Those would be, we're prepared to start articulating those courses fall semester of this year. When I say our state board will approve in May, it's actually going to go before the Georgia Board of Regents at their April board meeting. So instead of the receiving institution, they have to approve it. Then we would ask our state board to ratify it at the May meeting. So this would be effect really immediately, but you know, we would really push to start the fall semester.
And if I can I'm extremely proud of this work. When you looked at it, you saw there's been a lot of work over a number of years. But also, if you drill down to what's happened just in the last several years, that list of articulation between DOE and us, that's brand new. We've done that over the last 3 years. And so if you're in dual enrollment, you're earning college credits. But if you're not in dual enrollment and doing CTA, you can earn college credits based on those articulations. So we're trying to have the pathway really come up, starting with our DOE partners. And it really matches a little bit of the discussion the Workforce Board and others have had about making sure that the skills are being trained at the earliest levels, match all the way through the systems. The other thing that I'll just brag on the quality of the education in TCSG, a little bit self-promoting here, I'll admit that, but really appreciated Mercer. They came to us on what Ray presented on healthcare. And they asked us if they could partner with us and actually map every allied healthcare program that we offer across our complete system to Mercer's programs. And they said the reason they did that was the folks that are transferring from TCSG into their system were having such great success in comparison to others that they were willing to do that hard work. So very, very thankful for the quality of education our colleges are providing, and it just shows in that agreement there. The last thing I'll say is, and I'll challenge all of us, including myself, there's always been a lot of talk about the success of a community technical 2-year college transferring to a 4-year institution. What the studies say when you go back and look at it, if you take time, is the reason that students aren't successful when they do that transfer is because the barriers of articulation. And so when a student has spent 2 years working on an associate degree and they show up to a new institution and lose a year's worth of credit or something, it deflates them and they lose sight. And so this work hopefully is going to make a huge impact for our students, but also for USG and the independent colleges on retention and success once they come to those establishments. So I believe it's a huge workforce initiative, but also it's a huge thing to really make sure we remove barriers as the legislation mentions. Ray, that was a great presentation. Thank you.
And Ray, as I look at what the commissioner said and being around on workforce for maybe 12 years and the technical system state board for that long, this one excites me, this articulation, because I'm involved with the university system and with the technical system at high levels. Bringing these serves Georgians, maybe from my perspective, and we do a lot of things very, very well as a state and what we do, but this one's exciting because 50 years from now, they're going to be digging up the idea and thinking this was the wisest thing that we could have done. We should have done it earlier, but we're getting to it now, and we should be very proud of all the effort that's going into bringing it about now, especially the synergy.
And that's a good point, the synergy. When we were negotiating these recommendations with the university system, I mean, they were sold on doing this. They were bought into this. This was not something that they had to be drugged to the table to do. They were excited to do this. Of course, we were too. So we're very, very excited to see where this articulation of all this work. We're excited to see where this direction will go.
Good job.
Thank you all.
Make it echo at the same time, Dr. Perry, thank you. It makes it easier for that young individual who does not have the structural support to navigate on these things.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Make it easier and enrollment increases. All right. We'll move on to our next topic, which is an update and some action items on high demand. We've got Damon and Kristen for us in this area.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Damon Weller. So I'm going to kind of go through some of these slides rather quickly because you have seen these multiple times. And so there's no sense in boring you to death, but it does lead up to an action item. So I want to make sure that I spend enough time, but not so much that you're like, haven't we heard this before? So we're going through the high demand career list, which was established under House Bill 982. That under the Top State for Talent would generate a high demand career list for statewide and for 12 regions across the state that would be data driven to be able to inform individuals about what is in high demand right now. And so that was what this list is based upon. So kind of going through just in general, we use Lightcast as our main data tool because we already had that license. It's a well-known entity across labor market information in that industry. So we kind of looked at some different pieces here. We started with an unfiltered list of SOC codes, standard occupational codes. Somewhere closer around 800. I'll give you some numbers a little bit later on in the slides, but around 800 we started with. Then we looked at every occupation that had a positive job growth. So anything greater than 0 to be able to show that this is something that is growing within Georgia between 2020 and 2030. So we looked at a 10-year time period. Then we looked at the average annual openings to be able to compare whether or not that occupation had more than or equal to the statewide average annual openings, the median of that, which in Georgia is about 218. So each SOC code had to have 218 or more openings on an annual basis to be included. Then we looked at it and said, well, let's not just talk about what's going to be in demand, but what's going to be in demand that's also going to help somebody move forward to be able to have some type of living wage. So we looked at the MIT living wage data for 2 working adults and 1 child, comes up to about 44,000. Basically what we did from there is we took 75% of that. So that comes out to about 33,000 a year, roughly. So 33,000 a year, the occupation needed to be able to show that the average annual earnings there would be greater than 33,000 a year for each occupational code. Then we look at the credentials that are required to say this job needs to require more than a high school diploma. So that way we're trying to generate this list of occupations that is more career-based and less job-based, less somebody saying, okay, let me just go work at fast food and get what I need there, but probably going to have to get a second job as well. So we try to look at to see, does it require greater than a high school diploma? As well as then we looked at any on-the-job training components that would be incorporated in there. So this just kind of goes through that same thing, but just kind of details a little bit further down in there. And it also brings in one more component that we looked at called public good. Public good is anything that has been deemed as something that is for the the good of the public, the good of the public that, you know, may not meet some of the other criteria. So if you've got police officers, firefighters, things of that nature, the problem is that some of them may not quite meet all of the demands that we've set out before. It could be the wages. The wages could be lower for some of those public occupations. This also is to accommodate any special initiatives that the governor has. So if the governor has indicated that we want to move forward in a certain industry, and maybe that industry doesn't necessarily right now show up in that data, then we are able to put them onto the public good with the approval of the workforce strategy committee and what have you, to be able to look at, to say, let's be able to put them into the public good category. The whole purpose of all of this is to make sure that when we're looking at high demand, we're looking at it from a very objective standard, right? That we're looking at data. It's not just somebody saying, in my gut, I know this is going to be a good job. It is the data there to be able to support that. This will be generating a list every year that will come back in front of this board for approval. And Kristen will talk more about that in a moment. But that will be coming back in front of this board, and then it'll be posted out there for the general public to be able to see. So these are the components that we looked at to be able to generate that list. Here's how the numbers filtered out to be able to get you to where the list is right now. So as I mentioned, we start with about 800 SOC codes. As soon as you filter in the positive job growth, you can see it automatically goes to 586 jobs. If you add in the annual job openings greater than 218, it comes down to 347. And then if you look at the wages component to say, are they making at least 75% of the state median wage, down to 296? And then is it anything higher than a high school diploma or requires some type of significant OJT, then it goes to 242. And that's where our list is right now. So that's kind of the overview of how the demand list is being created on a yearly basis. And this gets applied at a regional level. So every regional level goes through this same component, with the exception of the annual job openings. It's based on the regional job openings. And some of those job openings in the region might only be 8. The median is 8, and you're just saying anything greater than 8. So 218 is applied at the state level, but then when you get down to the region, some of those regions can be as small as 8. Some of them go up to as high as 32, I think. So that's how that gets filtered in. So I think I'm going to turn over to Kristen now and talk a little bit about the policy behind it.
Yes, so we presented this to you, I think, ad nauseam in our October meeting, but the list wasn't finalized yet. The list, based on statute, had to be finalized by the end of December, so we called an executive committee meeting to do the approval of the finalized one state list, 12 regional lists, and then this policy that I'm going to go over with executives. So what we're going to be asking you to do, as is our custom, if we approve something, especially this big and important in an executive committee meeting, we just want to affirm the vote of that executive committee board. We talked about an appeals process in our October meeting. So what that is going to look like is that every year, so this first set of lists won't go through the approval, but every year following, we will come up with the new list and post it publicly by November 1st. After that, individuals or organizations will be able to submit RFIs, requests for information, to our group to ask why occupation either made it on or did not make it on. So if you're part of a professional organization, you have an occupation that did not make it on the list, and you want to know in what category that fell off, you can submit that RFI. Our data team will respond to that, give you that information. In our policy and throughout, we have been very clear that we utilize LightCast data to do that. Those were the licenses we had access to. A lot of other really good reasons for utilizing that data set, but there are a lot of different data sets out there. So if an organization wishes to appeal, they cannot appeal the factors that Damon went over, but they can appeal the data. So utilizing a different data source, you could appeal the factor that your job either fell out, or if there's a job on there that you don't believe should be on there, you can utilize a different data set to do that. So those appeals have to be submitted by January 1st. Our staff will then go through those appeals and then bring it before you in your first meeting of the year, which is typically around this time. The board will be able to go through those appeals, either approve or deny. And then the finalized list will be put out. So that's essentially what the list is. Mr. Chair, turn it over to you for the affirmation of the state list, the 12 region list, and then this this policy that we can take as one affirmation.
You have to vote on it individually, or if it doesn't look like. Okay, so as presented, and you see the list of 3 different things that you need to approve. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second. Having a motion and a second for the high demand career list policy, high demand career statewide list, high demand. All in favor of approving, indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. All
Thank you,
3
sir.
are approved. Thank you.
Damon, I have a question here. If there will, you take the 797 career list, and then you whittle it down to 242, I guess, on the end.
Correct.
And then you leave 70% of the career list out of the high demand field. When I think about that and I go back 40 years as far as working on workforce with previous governors and what we left behind without knowing we were leaving it behind. And I'm talking about my profession, construction. We sort of left it behind and now it becomes the focus. So I wonder if some of this stuff that we're putting in, we're lumping in that 70% that we're going to devote the energy to 30% high demand field. What happens down 30, 40, 50 years from now when we recognize that we emaciated or starved or cannibalized the resources to get these other ones, which I don't disagree with, but I'm wondering if we're thinking about that.
But I will say that one of the ways to think through that is that it is done annually. And so we actually pull the data annually with the updated information. So the hope is that if any of those 70% are there, if they're starting to make strides or deficits, I guess is what strides to get on the high demand, but let's say a deficit, meaning that they're not getting the individuals coming through the training pipeline. And so as such, now the demand is starting to go up higher than the supply. Then the hope is that every year you're going to see that start to show up. And then with the criteria that's there, they're going to then hopefully meet that criteria to get on there before it becomes too high of a demand. 218 is the median or what have you. So it would require that there's a deficit, if you will, of supply demand of about 218 workers. But the hope is that you're starting to see that as we go through. One thing we're working on with the Governor's Office of Student Achievement, which GOSA is the other team that's working with our TCSG team, is we are looking at is there a way to be able to provide the information, but then also provide those other occupations that are not on there, not as demand, but to be able to show you what these are the other ones and their information about why they may not be on there. That's something we're still kind of working through as a group. But again, from the pulling out the annual data, the hope is that we're able to make that catch as it's kind of moving through. Also note that SOC codes are not updated very frequently. So I didn't go through AI and what's the other big one that's coming through? AI is the big one that comes to mind right off. So AI and EV, they don't have their own SOC codes, and they only update SOC codes I think once every 10 years. And so I think 2028 is the next time that they'll update SOC codes. So right now, that EV and that AI is being lumped into general SOC codes. So let's take, for instance, auto mechanics. Auto mechanics right now could be those that are gasoline based, or it could be those that are EV based. We don't know the difference, but the hope is that that data is pulling into that one SOC code. Hopefully in 2028, USDOL, whoever else, BLS had be able to come through and now establish their own SOC codes to make that distinguishing factor. But to be able to answer that question, the hope is that by pulling it every year, we start to see that data to be able to accommodate for those that are maybe starting to now have a little bit of imbalance in their supply demand.
And David, it's a 10-year projection.
It's a 10-year projection.
Yeah.
It's not- And every year, BLS updates that data. So that way it becomes like we're using 2020, 2030 right now, we go to 2021, 2031, 2022 to 2032 and so forth.
It's encouraging if we keep the levers in sight, for the adjustment. That's important because, get out of sight. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? Apologies, I should ask them. All right. Moving along, our next update is registered teacher apprenticeship program, and Laura will provide a update.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I did want to share with you some information about the Registered Teacher Apprenticeship Program. I'm from the Office of Rural Education and Innovation. We're a recent new division at the Georgia Department of Education. We came about in 2021. We were funded with ESSER funds, and we're so excited that ESSER is gone and we are still in place doing work just to support divisions at the Department of Education in our rural school systems. We have a team leader, Dr. Bronwyn Reagan-Martin. You may know her. She is a former superintendent from Early County. Our senior program manager is Dr. Kermit Billiard. He is a former superintendent from Brady County. Our vision is to educate Georgia's future by leading transformational efforts to ensure a prosperous, connected, and thriving rural Georgia. Am I supposed to play this somewhere too? So our areas of work, one is teacher recruitment and retention for all students. And we do have a colleague, my colleague Heather Finley is over teacher recruitment and retention. She actually today is down doing a presentation with Coastal Pines Technical College and those surrounding counties on how they can work to be an educational partner for the teaching apprentice. I know Coastal Pines has a Parapro technical certificate, so she's working with them on how that could be incorporated in this pipeline with those school systems down there. For instruction with a focus on literacy, data analysis, and innovative academic solutions, that was Dr. Terry Roberts. She just recently was promoted to Special Education Director at the Department of Education, so that position is open, but we will be filling it shortly. Technology, we have Russell Kane, works with us for his area of work. Leadership is Dr. Kermit Gilliard. I'm Laura Ergel. I am the College and Career Readiness Specialist, so I work with school systems to come up with those innovative ideas on how can we provide more college and career opportunities in our rural districts, because we know they have very limited resources, but we want them to have opportunities just like counterparts do in suburban and urban areas. We are hiring a special education colleague to work on our team. That posting just came down recently. And then we have Chris Huckins, who works with our completion schools around the state. So I wanted to talk to you about the Georgia Registered Teacher Apprenticeship Program. This apprenticeship program will help our schools grow their own, as well as support the governor's Top State Talent Act, because education is on our career list there. So my colleague Heather Finley, she applied for an Apprenticeship Building America grant to create a registered teacher apprenticeship program. The Department of Education was the recipient of that grant and received close to $4 million specifically targeted for our rural school systems across Georgia. The Department of Education will be announcing soon a competitive grant too that will assist our non-rural school districts to participate in the Georgia Registered Teacher Apprenticeship Program. So we did receive a certificate, so the Department of Education will be a sponsor, and any school system in Georgia may apply to be an employer under the sponsorship. So why K through 12 teaching apprenticeships? To help create that sustainable teacher pipeline, it offers earn as you learn opportunities, supporting aspiring educators who face financial or logistical barriers. It develops local talent for schools, reducing reliance on external hires. It builds on existing parent-teacher, residency, and internship programs while unlocking new funding streams specific to registered apprentices. We have a statewide standardization with local flexibility. The Department of Education sponsors the program and provides standardized frameworks for districts to use. And then school districts can tailor the program with local colleges and universities to meet the workforce needs in their region. So addressing the rural needs and expanding opportunities statewide was our goal. So the impact it has on rural schools, it addresses significant teacher shortages by growing educators within the community. It ensures our districts have reliable access to well-prepared teaching professionals. We have a pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship expansion. We've secured the grant with the Department of Labor to offer those teaching pre-apprenticeships and apprenticeships in our 115 rural school districts, boosting program access and participation. And new funding opportunity, it unlocks federal, state, and workforce development funding sources previously untapped in education programs. So driving the economic growth, strengthening our local economies, keeps education investments in Georgia through partnerships with state colleges, universities, and technical schools. It reduces recruitment costs by creating a continuous local pipeline of educators. The workforce and community benefits, the Grow Your Own initiatives enhance our local schools while creating pathways to stable teaching careers. And it offers financial support for tuition, wages, and mentorship, reducing the financial burden on participants and school districts. So it offers flexible and impactful solutions. It benefits schools by tailoring apprenticeship programs specific to meet the needs of that district. Like it may be they're looking for STEM educators. Maybe they're looking for special education educators. But the school district can cater it to what their needs are. It enhances teacher retention through mentorship and job-embedded training. It facilitates strong partnerships. It strengthens the collaborations between school districts and colleges and universities, increasing participation and alignment with workforce needs. The Godot sponsorship advantages, it simplifies the program creation and the scalability for school districts under, we're calling it GART. So this next diagram shows you how the pipeline can begin in high school with students in the early childhood education pathway, in the education as a profession pathway, or as a dual enrolled student that's taking those courses dual enrolled. A practicum is part of the high school pathway, and if time permits in their schedule, and based off of what year they're in high school, if they're a senior, they might not have an opportunity, but they can continue on participating in work-based learning. Prior to graduation, students may take the DACE paraprofessional and upon graduation apply for their paraprofessional certificate. They may then move on to becoming a paid apprentice as a parapro or support staff while attending an educator prep program. They'll be offered progressive wages, a mentor, and supportive services. Their tuition can be paid from numerous funding sources. So this is just a little diagram to show you that there are numerous entry points that they can enter into these apprentices. The slide details the entry point into the program. Employers decide which best suits their needs, and they also choose the educational program providers that they wish to work with. The GARTAP is exclusive for undergraduate programs. It does not sponsor MAT or Georgia TAP programs. However, we have had one resource so far express interest in creating now their own apprenticeship program to support those MAT and Georgia TAP participants. So these are just some models to show you how And like I said, it's up to the school district. If they want to start in high school with that pre-apprenticeship program, which is ideal, because if you think, if they're mainly focusing on paraprofessionals going into those registered teacher apprentices, you need to grow the pipeline in high school. So when those paraprofessionals are moving on, you've got these high school students that just have recently graduated that can move on and fill those paraprofessional positions. So there's the pre-apprenticeship to teacher model. There's an apprenticeship to teacher, a 2 to 4 year model. And then there's the apprenticeship to teacher 2-year model, because some school systems, you know, they may say, we're not going to start an apprentice until they've already completed 60 hours of college credit. And they're ready to enter into that college education. So there's so much flexibility for school systems and EPPs to set up their model. So we have presented this program to 10 RESAs so far to date, and we still have more on the calendar. And we've hosted a few virtual sessions. We have 11 school systems to date that have applied and been approved to be an employer under GARTAP. We have 3 more that are pending or making revisions to their application. 3/4 of our applicants so far are rural districts. As funds become available with the Apprenticeship Building America grant and additional funds from the Georgia Department of Education competitive grant, we feel that this number is going to grow significantly. We are encouraging our school systems to reach out to their local or regional workforce boards to partner together on the high demand workforce needs in their community, and not just necessarily education and teaching. We want them to review the governor's high demand, high wage, and high skills career list to ensure alignment, so we can produce the top talent for the #1 state in the nation to do business. If you would like access to a school system that's maybe in your region, I'm happy to share with you a CTA director contact so you can get on their advisory board and work with them. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them at this time. Okay, and I just wanted to end with saying, on Tuesday, we did launch a new website that is going to be hopefully a great resource. It's Teaching the Peach, so it's going to have lots of resources there for anyone interested in teaching. So that will be your one-stop shop to go to see who's hiring, what you need to do. So we encourage you to visit that website. It just went live. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is the Rapid Response Spotlight of the Chico story. Brendan will lead us through this.
Yes. You have seen a lot of me. I'm so sorry. So I did want to follow up and just very how excited we are to be partnering with the Georgia Department of Education. Earlier this month, the TCSG board, those that are also on the board know this, we rolled out the awardees of the Public Service Apprenticeship Program. It was a new program that was passed a couple of, well, actually last legislative session. And what we were most excited about was the majority of the awardees were school districts that Georgia Department of Education was working with. And then the majority of those were also rural school districts. And so we're hoping that that state investment can, further, continue that. So on a different note, I mentioned earlier the Chico's facility that's being laid off. So if you don't know, Chico's is a clothing retailer that has a distribution center in Winder, Georgia, in Barrow County. And they announced that they were laying off or that they were closing. And I believe it will be, we understand it to be a full closure over the course of the next couple of months. So to rewind a little bit, before the end of before the new year, I was talking with our director, Laura Gomez, who's back there. Laura, if you can raise your hand. And she was really excited about, kind of where are we going with the team. And she said, one of the things I would like us to do is a transition center. And a transition center is where we offer, so usually, as you guys know, when we offer our services, we go in for maybe an hour, a couple of hours, present the employees with what is available, and then from there, we bring in partners and help connect them. A transition center is where we quite literally camp out on site. We're there for people to access us, for, set number of, hours every day. But it allows us to really delve deep and build relationships with the employees and also bring together partners. And that's exactly what we did with our Chico's Transition Center. One of the big highlights that I like to point to with this transition center is it allowed us not just the opportunity to have more one-on-one time with the employees to help them understand what services are available, how to access them, but it allowed us in real time to actually adjust what we were doing. We found out, we always talk about opportunities in adult education, but we found out while going on the site, a lot of them were interested in English as a second language courses. A lot of them were interested in getting their GED. For many of them, this was their first job here in the United States. And so they've gone through an entire process, been here for decades. And so they're really looking at, when they're looking at their next job, trying to figure out, if I'm going to land somewhere, how do I make sure that I'm landing, a better place than I am now? And so we were able to bring in those resources. We worked a lot with New York Technical College, with Athens Tech, and we're able to bring those resources in. Same thing on the WorkSource Georgia side. We had our partners in our employment services teams there helping us out. And what was nice about it is every time you went to a center, and I stopped by it quite often, I actually live not too far from it, it was a number of different organizations there in the center, not just our rapid response staff, which is exciting. So the services, pretty comprehensive. We talked about the services over time, but just about any service that you can think of, we offer. No, you're good. Actually, that's what I was trying to get to. As our rapid response team says, we respond rapidly. We also click rapidly. What we were able to do with this particular transition center, as we were helping, provide services for a number of weeks, it all culminated in us having a job fair on site. And that job fair was coordinated by not just the rapid response team, we played a big role, but it was coordinated by our business services Title III team. And they went out and they found employers in the area that were looking to hire. What I did not know when I got there on site, and Laura was actually able to share with me, that at that job fair, and I think, it has a number of people over there, they said that they intentionally looked to make sure that every single job that was available paid the same, if not better, than the jobs that they currently have. And that takes a lot of work, right? Working with employers, really letting them know, what's available. And so not only do we have nearby employers, but we actually have the incoming employer that will be taking over the building in the next year or so, providing information on what they have available. And then resource partners, you name it. So we are currently on site for another couple of months. There's 2 actual centers on site. So we'll be closing out one, we'll be opening up another one. And hopefully from this, we're learning a lot, and we're going to use some of these as best practices. As you all may, there's a little bit of an uptick in layoff activity going on throughout the entire Southeast region. And so we hope to, if presented the opportunity to do this again, to set up a center. With that, I'll take any questions. Yes.
Do we track how many people get hired at these job fairs?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when they do go to our center, we have them create an account in the WorkSource Georgia portal, and then we try our very best to connect them to the actual WARN event. I believe we've been pretty successful in doing that thus far. And then from there, we do run performance on these individuals. So we'll understand if they're employed, we'll understand or we'll know how much they're making. And then that's something that we can refer back to. Now that's a much longer term thing to get information on, just because we're relying on wage data. All right. Thank you all.
Okay, next on the list is workforce Georgia portal updates. And then we'll return to the state.
Okay.
We'll take a minute break. I don't know if we'll take it. So, 11:50.
Yeah.
Yes.
And every time I tell me so.
Mikey's version.
In case you're wondering, the restrooms are on this side of the building. The restrooms are on this side.
But I said,
So right now I said, Merry Christmas. Yes.
And then I told him something.
How are you?
I did for several years. I did No, I know. But That's what we want for that purpose. Yeah, well, now that we have that quick registration, we can get there and see all that.
Actually, they're being recognized.
It's nothing that you get
When this was April, we'll start there.
I went to the one in Boston. No, I went to one in Boston. But somebody
Firehouse. We've had so.
you know, where is that?
Oh, yeah. I knew when I said when I said it to you in the meeting, I said, I'll take that.
I was like, a year ago. So I and if you want someone says, yes, it's being abused, and when it takes a little place to go. I don't just see it like this, to share what's happening. And when I saw because I know some other things. Yeah, yes, that's the book. Think about it. It's like, okay. So even if the technician, she can still sit there and get her in. Yeah. That would transfer education at she won't get her home. Yes, yeah, that's a great.
This one you can't.
Let's say.
See if you make it. I don't know what else to do. Yeah, it's up.
She would have an estimate. Lady from Yale.
So they can help you. Like talking about
And then he kind of pulled it last year. I've got all these books that are signed by. And I want to do contests in every elementary school, but I started this process. It's so much work to find the person that goes, okay, I know you, and you know, blah, 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 and that's through the.
well,
So it's somebody in the elementary.
and you know,
system.
they have like a reading day on so that might be that they should tag team with those schools.
I mean, in Cobb, there were 69 schools.
Yeah.
And there were. Yeah. You'll find what I'm after.
Yes, yes. You want somebody that.
Somebody that don't have to talk to more than a couple of people.
Yes,
Because
yes.
in a couple of counties, they sent me, they didn't, I hate to say it like that, they didn't know who I was. But they just thought I was myself. Well,
Yeah, so what counties are you looking at?
yeah, all around Atlanta. Well,
Yes.
it took. Yeah, like, let's just county now, but about 10 counties, which you.
For the metro area.
Yeah, because
Okay.
the center red line county, it's based on that. He wrote. I was trying to get it in.
I got it now.
He and I are working together.
Good, I'm glad you were.
Just somebody.
Yeah.
You're gonna be my president.
All right, we'll bring the meeting back to order. David.
All right, good morning again. I guess I'm like Brandon, come back at you again. So wanted to talk to you a little bit about our Workforce Georgia portal. And I want to make sure that I at least set the groundwork because the Workforce Georgia portal is something I work in every day, every hour. I even see it in my sleep many times. So this is basically our data entry system. This is what we would call a labor exchange system. This is where individuals go register themselves, or staff will utilize it to register them, to assign services, to be able to document all the great things that are going on, as well as employers that go to this site to be able to look for candidates, to post jobs, to be able to get a labor market information. So Workforce Georgia portal that we're talking about is a broader sense, that labor exchange system. What we're here to talk to you about today is that we have recently implemented artificial intelligence in the Workforce Georgia portal. We were a little measured in doing it, so it had been available through our vendor for a minute, but we did not immediately go for it. We needed to talk through security, make sure that everything was there to make sure that this was going to still be a secure option. So we were very excited to be able to implement. We implemented it in the 1st of December. So as you can tell, then it's only been going for a couple of months, but it impacts many of the different areas within the portal. Unfortunately, we don't have time to do a demo for you today. That would be even better, but in a moment, Alicia Crowder will come up and talk to you about some of the details. But just in 2 months, we've already seen some pretty interesting statistics. About 19% of our resumes in that 2 month period have been done using the AI. And they can generate a brand new resume from scratch from AI, or they can have a resume, upload it, and then ask AI to improve it. Now, everything that AI does is just a recommendation in the system. In other words, it will provide them the information, and then it'll put their the information they had prior right next to it to say, do you want to import the AI generated into? And we'll talk more about that as we go. From the job order standpoint, we've seen about 10% of our job orders that are created in that last 2 months have actually been created by AI. So we do know that it is getting usage. We're hoping that we see even more usage as we go, as people get more comfortable with it and what have you. And we put out a couple of videos, I believe, and some manuals out there to be able to show individuals how to utilize it. But we're very excited about this change. So I'm not going to step on Alicia's content anymore, but I'm very privileged to introduce you to our manager of training, Alicia Crowder, who can talk to you a little bit more about it.
She was going to be my critic.
Oh.
So here we have our employers, and in the job posting, usually they will have to go through and insert all the information, but if they utilize their AI, so here if they click on AI Assist, now the only thing they have to do is put those job titles, and because those job titles are connected to the ONET, it pulls that information in. Where it could have taken them 30 minutes, now you can get a whole job order in 10 minutes. And so the employer can go through and always edit to make sure that it aligns with their goals. And then after that, they can send it and be ready for applicants to apply. And so again, like Damon said, it's only a recommendation. If you do not like something, the employer can always go in and change and make those modifications, okay? Another place that they have it is interview prep. So now when applicants are drawn to those job postings, they can have interview questions for that specific job, that applicant. And so if I like an applicant, I can go with, the employer can go in and say, hey, I like this applicant, but I want some interview questions that pertains to that applicant. So they'll draw from that job postings and that applicant resume to create questions just for that applicant. On our job seeker side, they can make their AI generated resume. What it takes is during our registration part, we have background information where it asks, what kind of job would you like? What are your history for as your education, your employment, and then it pulls all of that information in, and here you'll see where they have all of that information here from AI, but again, on a full version, you'll see their regular, you'll see the optimized one, which is this, and then the original one. And it's always going to ask you, is this something that you want to do? If it's so, you'll click save new resume, and then that imports into their saved resume list. They can also make that resume offline. So maybe I don't want that resume to show to our employers. You have that option. So the option is still in the hands of our job seekers. The box did it. We also have a tailored resume. So let's say, and this is exclusive to our employers. So employers that are actually registered inside our system and put in a job, our job seekers can tailor their resume to that job posting. So now you don't get that general resume. You get one that is ascribing to those requirements that employer wants. And so they'll go in, and they'll also from that, they'll say apply to a Georgia work source. They'll hit AI Assist. Again, you get that option. And I always want to give you the option of your original version over the AI assisted version. So when if they like it, they can save it, and then they'll apply directly to that job posting with that tailor. We also have that for cover letter. So if you needed a cover letter for that job posting, that cover letter will be tailored to that employer's job posting. So you have that pertinent information. Is that working? I don't want to move forward. Now I'm doing it.
Just because it didn't click the first time, don't click 9 more.
Yes, ma'am. Now for the cover letter, again, you have to input information in that body, so it's not AI, it's just not thinking for you. It's not, oh, we still need your human touch. So that job seeker will put some information, it will optimize it here. Again, your options stay, you're controlling it. Our job seekers are controlling what information they want to use. This is just to polish. Maybe I get a little nervous when I'm thinking of what words to use. This is your polish. I like to say we gifted our job seekers with an assistant. We gifted our employers with an assistant that help you along your way. And so if you like it again, you insert it into your body, that becomes a part of your profile and you can use it as you would like.
Wish we had this in college.
Also, the job seekers also have interview prep. So maybe I don't know, maybe I'm not a good interviewer. You can also get interview questions. Now, it won't give you the answer, so maybe you have to do a little research on your own for that. But at least you have the questions that could potentially be asked by that employer. So you got a little leg up on that part. And then you can research those questions and prepare for that interview because you know kind of sort of what the employer may ask, and all that information again is based on that job posting. So they put all that information, it draws the questions out, and it's contained in our WorkSource Georgia portal. And this also saves, so every time they save it, it saves to their profile, and so they can revisit as needed. You're doing something to me. Can I click? Are there any questions?
Alicia, do you want to talk about on the job orders, when the employer goes in to create a job order and they've indicated what the title of the job is, and then they select the ONET code that goes behind it, what does it fill out for the rest of that job?
So it will fill out the median salary, it will fill out the requirements. And so the good thing about connecting it to the ONET is that now you get that competitive salary and we don't have to worry about doing an over salary or under salary for those. So everything from that ONET that pulls in is going to give you information to the employers around you that's offering that same job title. So you get a good qualified list of information for your job posting.
And from a security standpoint, this is why we were very measured about moving forward, is that everything is contained within our version of the AI chat, if you will, right inside of our system. If there's anything that goes out to get anything, they have scrubbed the data so hard that it doesn't contain anybody's name, no addresses, no phone numbers, nothing identifiable. It's just going to simply send out maybe a job title to get what is the most recent information about this job title out there to bring it back in. So that's the security part of it that we were very eager to find out about. Once with that, we were able to get over that hurdle. We were able to move forward. And we do feel like this is going to be a huge step forward. But one of the main things, and when we talked about putting out policies with the staff on this, is that this does not replace a human. Flat out. So in other words, when we put this out there for staff to say, hey, you can do this for your job seekers, you can do this with your employers, it was, you can do this to be able to help improve, bring it back, and talk about it with your job seekers. So in other words, a job seeker might be eager to say, yes, AI, create that. I don't want to spend that time. Still going to come back, and that staff member is still going to sit down with that job seeker and say, okay, does this describe you? Does this describe you? Does this describe you? Did you really do this? Did you? So they're going to go through those components. But it just helps those individuals that, for lack of a better word, get writer's block, right? That you just can't get those words right. We're also excited about the fact that you can generate a customized resume based upon the job that you're applying to. Because there's a lot of people that just say, well, I generated this resume. They may even go and got it done professionally, right? And they put it in our system. But the problem is, it's usually a generic resume that they're trying to apply to multiple things. I always say somebody that's in human resources, you're in human resources, you're in training, you probably do a little bit of budget planning, all those things. So if you're applying to any of those things, you want the resume to now pivot, right? And become more customized toward that job. So if I'm HR and I've done my resume HR generalist based, but now I see a job for a trainer, it's going to look at that and it's going to say, let's change your resume to more training based. And then within the system already, there's an ability that once they do that, they can actually turn that job into that resume into chronological, into functional. They can even do one that is geared toward the military, the federal requirements. So if they're applying for a federal job and it's got its own kind of template, that template's already loaded in there. So yeah, we're very excited about this. Like I said, we've already seen some really good usage in that 2-month time frame. And we're eager to see what's going to continue to go forward with it.
David, will you also speak a little bit to the opportunity to improve productivity or work product quality for the ES staff?
Right. Yeah. Multiple parts of that. One is obviously if AI is generating the resume, the staff are not spending as much time to go through and have to write up a resume for somebody that has maybe low literacy skills or anything of that nature. So that AI is going to help to be able to shorten that time. But there's other components that we did not highlight today, like case noting. There's an ability to be able to help generate case notes for that case manager to be able to, all they have to do is just generally put in there, met with Damon about resume. And it's going to turn it into met with Damon about resume, job search techniques, things that are related to his job search and what have you. And so that case noting is going to become key as well, to be able to give them that efficiency of being able to say, okay, let me put just the general part in here in the case note. It's going to generate a full case note. We haven't seen as much usage on that, but that comes down to a little bit more staff training, a little bit more staff ease as to what that means. What is that? What's that usage there? But certainly when you talk about the job orders and the resumes, those are two main things that it takes a staff a lot of time to work with an employer or a job seeker to generate the process. A resume alone, right? What are you doing? You're having to interview the whole time. Okay, what did you do on that last job? Well, I worked at the cash register. Now let's talk a little bit more. What else did you do? Did you help with scheduling at all? Did you help? And that AI is going to generate those job descriptions, and they're going to be able to go through and say, "Oh yeah, no, I did. Oh, I did that too. I forgot about that." So that's where that efficiency comes in, because the staff aren't sitting there trying to think of all these things for a job seeker that comes in. The other part about the portal that I did not mention but should is that for any unemployment claimant, they are required to register in that portal by the Georgia Department of Labor to continue their claim. They're required to actually register. So this isn't just the individuals that are coming in for job search services. These are claimants that are also required to do job search. So again, the efficiency there of being able to move forward with a resume pretty quickly, be able to move forward with interview questions. That's the efficiency part that I'm probably most excited about, because a lot of times we focus on their job search and we focus on the resume, but what we don't focus on is let's do some practice interviews, because a lot of people are just really bad interviewers, and so there's plenty of times that you're hoping, okay, let's do this. Well, guess what? You've already got questions. Here's the questions. Go back and think about these questions, and then on our next meeting, bring me back how you would answer that. It gives us that ability to have that back and forth, and the efficiency as well as the effectiveness that hopefully we see from that as well. Any other questions?
It also has industry terms. So let's say you go into a new industry, it will generate those industry terms so you can get familiar. So while you're interviewing, you're familiar to the verbiage that they're using. And so it offers a lot to our job seeker, not only to get them the interview, but to make sure they actually get the position. Because our end goal is to make sure that they acquire the job, not just to have a resume out there circulating.
Yeah, that's a great point, to be able to know the jargon in the industry, if you're not familiar with it, or even for those that maybe have been out of the industry for a couple of years and they're trying to get back into it, to be able to know what that updated jargon is. So, any other questions?
Not on this statement, but the high demand career pathway, should an employer puts a job on there, or someone is looking for a job, is it going to note that this is a high demand career position?
It's a great point. I think we've got some capabilities there. I think that's a great suggestion that we can look at. We are working up right now our own internal kind of supply and demand reporting, to be able to look at from the high demand list, how many people in our system already have those skills that relate to a high demand job, to be able to say, okay, let's get you into one of those jobs because you've already got the skills. Vice versa. maybe there's a high demand that we don't have the jobs in the system. The employers just haven't come to us. So what does that do? That gives the ability for Brandon's team to go out and focus on those employers to be able to make sure that we're getting those jobs in the system, because obviously the data stating there's demand. Let's find those employers, get the demand into the system, so that way then we can make a better labor exchange. But I think it's a great point. I'll definitely look at that and see if we can't maybe put some kind of indicators on there to be able to pull that. We do have some indicators in the works right now, such as EV. We're actually adding an indicator in the system right now for EV, so that way then we're able to identify those jobs very quickly, and we can be able to look at individuals and talk about transferable skills to be able to get them into those EV jobs. But in a general high demand career list, I think that's a great suggestion. Any other questions? All right, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, to our last agenda item, welcome back, Sonia. Give us a spotlight update. Workforce topic.
I won't keep you guys too long. We're at the tail end of this meeting, and I know folks are ready to go home by now, right? I again want to thank you guys for coming today. And for me, for the spotlight, is really highlighting partnerships. I know how to work this clicker here. There we go, right? So for us at ComWorks, we really believe that partnerships are at the heart of the successful outcomes for our customers. First of all, it's really important to ensure that we have strong employer partnerships. We always start our programs with employers in mind. We start working with an employer to ensure that we understand what those employers' needs are, to ensure that we can ensure that the customers are receiving the types of training to ensure that they can also receive those job opportunities. One of our signature programs is our Power Up initiative. It was started back in 2021. We started this particular program with an company called Prime Power. Now, Prime Power is a company that provides services in the emergency power industry. Now, think about this. I know for me, when we started meeting with this employer, I had never heard of the emergency power industry, didn't know it existed. So think about the fact that if you don't know these opportunities exist, that employer was having difficulty identifying talent as people were aging out, people were retiring, people were leaving. They had no pipeline of talent. They were very open to us coming in to their organization and creating a training program. What we were able to do for Prime Power is we paid for the training, we provided work readiness and soft skills. We turned it into a pre-apprenticeship program. Individuals going through that training program receive on-the-job training for 40 hours a week, 5 days a week. They work directly with licensed apprentices, licensed journeymen, licensed journeymen. And as they begin to get certain credentials in this industry, at the end of the training, they left with industry recognized certification. They received that work-based learning, and were hired on the spot by several different employers, including Prime Power, who took, I believe, 5 apprentices. We took 10 individuals through this particular program. Now, this particular program had a number of benefits. First of all, it started to build talent pipelines for this employer from what we call non-traditional talent pools. Power Up focuses on non-traditional talent pools because we recognize that individuals who don't work in these industries don't generally have these opportunities. They're not aware of the opportunities. So we want to make sure that we're expanding awareness and opening doors for individuals that wouldn't normally have these opportunities. But it also provides an ongoing talent pool for that employer. For an employer like Prime Power, who was struggling to identify people that had the skills that he needed to fulfill jobs that were open, this became a regular talent pool for him. So he was able to shift his hiring practices to ensure that he embedded our strategies for Power Up into his regular hiring practices. Again, I talked a little bit about some of the benefits of this particular program. It's also an integrated service delivery model. If an individual comes to us and they may not have a high school diploma or a GED, they can go through their GED program or an adult high school diploma program while they're participating in the skills training program. And that's a very important component of this particular program. In addition to that, we provide very robust wraparound services. A lot of the individuals that go through our programs don't have access to transportation. That may be a struggle for them. Or maybe they need, say, childcare assistance or some work uniforms and things of that nature. We can pay for those things as well. In addition to that, we utilize a braided funding strategy because oftentimes we always requires that we work within this box. And then the individual falls $1 outside of this box and they're over income. We can't service them, but it doesn't mean that customer doesn't have needs. So we want to ensure that we utilize every single resource that we potentially can find to support this individual going through this training. Individuals that go through our training programs are paid $15 an hour to go through the training program. They receive the robust they receive the robust wraparound services. But in addition to that, they receive on-the-job training with that particular employee. We've embedded Power Up in a number of different programs over the last few years. I said it started back in 2021. Now we're working with the Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling Contractors Association, who's also struggling to identify talent. We've become their go-to for building talent pipelines for them. In addition to that, Lockheed has allowed us to embed our Power Up program into their hiring. As of now, Lockheed is looking at hiring 750 people over the next 5 years, over the next 5 years. This is really important because, again, I was talking to some other folks in the room earlier today and talking about our program with Lockheed. And initially, when we started back in August, we started our recruitment with them and only able to identify one individual to go through. There was a cohort of 10 started there, but only one individual was eligible for the financial resources. Because again, we're looking at resources that have eligibility attached to them. So there are a great deal of restrictions. So with that being said, we went through the program, one individual qualified. We're in cohort 2 now. We have 4 individuals qualified out of the 10. We're also now recruiting, cohort 2, by the way, is in play. We're now recruiting for cohort 3 and 4. We already have identified 10 individuals that Lockheed has approved to go through the program. So it works. It truly works. And again, it's about expanding opportunities for the individuals that may not normally have the opportunities. With Lockheed, their particular program is the Aircraft Structures Facility Program. As I said earlier, I said 5 years, 7 years, so they're going to recruit 750 individuals over 7 years. It's a 10-week training program. The individuals that are eligible for our resource, this thing, 10 weeks. It's difficult to go through a training program for 10 weeks and not get paid. Not a lot of folks can do that. So being paid $15 an hour helps contribute to the retention for those individuals being able to go through that program. Chat Tech actually provides the training, the skills training program. It's a career apprenticeship program. And as I said earlier, we're in the process of recruiting for cohorts 3 and 4, and we already have 10 individuals that are eligible. You guys can ask questions. Commissioner Dozier, I think you see yourself up there. This is our young man. You'll see a lot of our success stories around the room. This is a young man that went through this particular program and graduated. He was the very first one to go through the Lockheed program in cohort 1. He's our youth. He's 18 years old. He's graduated. He's working at Lockheed now, making $21 an hour. And all because we were able to support him through this training program. It's difficult to go through a training program for 10 weeks and not get paid. Not a lot of folks have the luxury, and I do mean a luxury, of being able to do that. Power Up has been an extremely successful program. The young man by the name of James Cameron Boyd. But Power Up has been extremely successful. We've already graduated 53 people. 96% of them are employed. 55% roll over into registered apprenticeship programs. And we've gone through 6 different industries: power companies, solar, plumbing, HVAC, mechanical trades, and now aircraft assembly. Very proud of our Power Up program. Another great program that we have that I want to talk a little bit about is our Realign Restart. The Realign Restart program truly transforms challenges into opportunities. This particular program is in partnership with Cobb County Adult Detention Center, our Cobb County Sheriff's Department, Construction Ready. I'm sure many of you have heard of Construction Ready, as well as Chattahoochee Tech. Construction Ready and Chattahoochee. Finding skills training programs. Those individuals that go through these programs receive industry recognized credentials on site. They also receive professional development. And upon leaving the program and leaving the facility, I should say, they're able to obtain employment. This particular program has been tremendous success. Really very proud of this as well. We've had 70 enrollments, 59 graduates, 24 have already been released, and 70% of those individuals are currently employed. You can imagine that reduces recidivism. It changes people's lives. You give hope where there is no hope. I wanted to show you one of our graduating class. What I love about the sheriff is he comes to every single class, every graduation, and he provides a presentation. He allows us to host a graduation, and celebrate those individuals while they're in the facility. And I forgot to mention one of our other partners, a very strong partner, is Cobb Adult Ed. Forgot to say that. Cobb Adult Ed and Dr. Bobby Creech allowed us to install a GED testing facility within the adult jail. That's really important. We took a poll in that jail and we found that more than 70% of the people that were currently incarcerated did not have a GED or a high school diploma. I'm sure you can see the correlation, right? So having that facility, that testing center, that GED prep on site with Cobb Adult Ed teaching those classes is critical to those individuals being able to leave that facility and obtain employment. It's hard to get a good job if you don't have even a high school diploma. You gotta have that foundational pillar. But this is just one of our many success stories. You'll see Nathan Burrell's poster. You'll see it around the building here. He is one of our graduates. He's currently earning $30 an hour, and he's in a roofing career. Again, these kind of programs, they work, but it's a matter of making that investment. Our last program is our partnership that we have with the Cobb Fire Explorers. This is a transformative initiative for youth between the ages of 16 to 24, training them in fire and emergency services. The young people that go through this training program are work 40 hours a week and trained 40 hours a week on site at the Fire Safety Center, and they were paid $50 an hour over 18 weeks. And upon completion, they receive an EMT certification and an opportunity to enter the full fire academy. Again, let me talk a little bit about this program because we started this program about 2.5 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. And our initial program, we had one individual that graduated. It wasn't Evie. Evie's one of our success stories, one of our many success stories now. But we only had one individual that could graduate. But what happened was the fact that the training program was so stringent in their approach. You can't miss X number of days. You can't do this. You can't. They found that individuals that were enrolling were falling off so quickly. They immediately shifted over the last year or so. We now have 18 people enrolled, 18 youth enrolled in this program. Very excited. And they're very excited as well. They came to our grand opening last week and talked a little bit about the program and the success of it. Evie's one of our many success stories. She's a youth. She graduated, received her EMT certification. Now she's a full-fledged firefighter for the Cobb County Fire Department. Again, providing opportunities where people think that they have none. That's all that I have. I wanted to talk a little bit about our program. Does anyone have any questions?
Love to hear success.
Thank you so much.
Sonia, thank you for all you do.
Thank you so much.
All right. We come to the end of the agenda, Mister.
Great. Thank you.
I just want to thank, Sonia. This is a lovely facility and